Welcome everyone to TechTalk Friday, and it's been a long time. I know. In the past, you would have seen Karamjit and myself having chats on technology, and in the past few seasons, Karam has also partnered with Nigesh on the TechTalk Friday, and this very new season of TechTalk Friday is back. And today we're gonna be talking about tech that matters, tech that counts, talk that counts. And today the focus is going to be on cybersecurity. And with me today will be a very special person, the CEO of CyberArmor and the founder of FullArmor, Danny Kim, is going to be joining us shortly in this show, and we're going to go deep, really deep, in this space of cybersecurity. We've seen so many hacks over the last couple of months, couple of years, where even smaller organizations are getting hacked today, and we've seen countless organizations struggling with this whole concept of technology and cybersecurity, especially. So, with that, let me introduce Danny Kim. Danny, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you with us, Danny. Super excited to talk cybersecurity. I think it's one of the most interesting topics because not much is known about cybersecurity. Maybe Danny, very quick bit about your background. And I know you've been in cybersecurity for 36 years. You service a lot of global Fortune 100 companies in terms of their cybersecurity needs. You develop amazing cybersecurity products with FullArmor. But tell us a bit about your journey and how you got into cybersecurity. I think 30 plus years ago, right? 36 years ago, 37 years ago.
Yeah, I was in cybersecurity before it was called cybersecurity. I think the earliest use of terms is kind of hacking and anti-hacking. So 36 years ago, I don't think many of the audiences were even born 36 years ago. For me, even further back than that, the way I got into kind of cybersecurity or hacking was in the days of DOS. I was actually using Windows and DOS, and I got into gaming, and then I got into making and building or programming my own games. And then eventually I got kind of bored, and I thought, what can I do that's a challenge? And back then in the 80s, games were distributed via floppy disks and CDs, and they had copy protection on it. And the biggest challenge was among all the hackers is how can you break the copy protection on these games? And so I became very, and not to incriminate myself, but I became one of the best copy protection hackers in the industry. I was able to figure out how to get around all security. And what I realized is I love doing this. I love figuring out ways around things, but also because I knew how to get around many of the protections, I knew how to defend it. So what you'll see is a lot of cybersecurity is knowing how to not only know the vulnerabilities of environments, but knowing how to also defend against it. And so if you have a curious mind, if the kind of person that likes to tinker and look what's behind the curtain, you actually have a good personality for cybersecurity.
So tell us a bit about what's happening in the cybersecurity space now, because lots of changes. AI is coming in, and we see at the same time we see so many. Cybercrime has increased to an exponential level. What's driving this? And I know Malaysia is one of the top 10 countries that are hacked, right? And I know US is number one, makes sense, but for Malaysia to be number 8 seems very interesting. Tell us a bit about your understanding of what's happening in this space.
This space is blowing up because as we get more and more interconnected, as computers are networked and businesses are also interconnected. So it's not about attacking just one business. You can attack one software vendor in a supply chain of businesses, and you can actually affect the whole industry as a whole. And cyber hacking has come from hobbyist hackers, the kids in the mom's basement, to criminal activity that's actually making a ton of money doing this criminal activities. Actually, the latest figure and very conservative figure is that next year alone, we're going to see 10 trillion with the T trillion dollars worth of cyber criminal losses across the world. That's huge. And so again, there's an incentive for cyber criminals. And what they're doing is they're actually leading the charge in utilizing the best of AI to make themselves more expansive and wider reaching. And so we have to be more and more clever about how we defend ourselves.
And the types of attacks have changed, right? I mean, I know in the past you talked about data breaches, 2005 to 27, and there were a ton of them, right? I mean, a ton of data breaches that were happening. But the types of attack today have changed, right? I mean, if you look at some of the recent attacks over the last couple of maybe last year, I mean, talk us through some of these things. Yep, Danny. Talk us through some of the attacks that have happened over the last couple of in 2023 specifically.
Yeah, if you look at the attacks, they've been increasing in not just sophistication, but if you look at this, it's just the who's of both technology firms like Okta, which does single sign-on. Imagine having your single sign-on vendor be hacked, so that all your single sign-on activity is compromised. To MGM, to supply chain vendors, to even smaller online cloud vendors that are in operation. So nobody's immune. Actually, every sector that we're looking at is being attacked in all different various ways.
One of the things that you did was to look at the MGM kind of attack, right? And how it happened. I mean, it's quite interesting how MGM was attacked, right? Because it wasn't attacked directly; it was kind of behind the scenes through one of their admin, IT admin persons, right? Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, this is what's called a social engineering attack, and I bring this out as a case study a lot of times because people don't realize that they think hacking are just computer criminals behind the firewall in a network somewhere and trying to break in through technology means. But actually, because we are so prevalent in social media, what hackers are doing is they're finding your profile, like Roshan. Just say someone decided they want to hack into your company. What they'll do is, they'll figure out Roshan is the CEO of Leaderonomics, and you know what? We're going to find out everything about Roshan. And so they go online to your social media, to your LinkedIn, to your Facebook, to your Instagram account. They'll look up your kid's school. I mean, they will know every detail about you. And then they will use that data to go into the corporate help desk. They may call your help desk person and say, hey, and they'll actually recreate your voice. So as long as you have recordings out there, they can actually recreate your voice. And suddenly there's a phone call that comes from someone with Roshan's voice saying, hey, I just lost my password. I don't have my phone with me. Can you reset it? And then you'll have a conversation about, I'm at my son's graduation and enough detail that the other person will be fooled into thinking, this is Roshan. It's his voice. We got his personal information. Let me reset it for you, Roshan, just right now. And all they need is literally a few minutes. Even if the real Roshan calls in and says, hey, I didn't do this, they only need a few minutes because they have all the batch files and automation set up. So as soon as they get an entry in, they install a virus or install a Trojan horse, and that's it. Even if you then reset Roshan's account, they've got an entryway in, and you'll see in these flow charts, they're very sophisticated in the way they attack, right? They'll actually go and they know exactly what to look for. And in this scenario, they actually went into the Okta administrator account and then compromised the single sign-on and then put in a mini Trojan horse that allowed their account to sign in with admin privileges. And then they didn't need Roshan's account anymore. And this happened once they got in, they were just waiting until they could find the vulnerable systems. And they waited for, we think, not just weeks, but sometimes months.
Yeah. And Danny, I guess one of the things that I think is interesting is that typically this is not just happening to big companies like MGM anymore, right? It's happening. I mean, we just saw this in Malaysia or in Singapore, actually. A law firm, right, was held ransom and they paid $1.8 million just to get their sort of data and some of the other files back. So they're going after hospitals, schools, and you see that not just in the US, right, but also in Malaysia. So let's talk about Malaysia a little bit. Top 8 in the world. Why is that?
Well, cyber criminals are they're not doing it just for a challenge or bragging rights. So a lot of times before they'd be like, okay, let's go after Walmart so we can have bragging rights. They've gotten smarter and they know that the money's still there, but in an easier target. So what they look for is industries that have high data value and low cybersecurity resilience. And so not only different industries will they look for, but also different countries that may not be as sophisticated, may not have a widespread cybersecurity standards or deployment. And so, this is one of the top 10 lists you don't want to be on. And unfortunately, what it means is Malaysia is coming up as a developed business nation that's doing multinational business with companies all around the world, which is great. What then the hackers see is, oh great, now I've got a target-rich environment, data-rich environment, and not as much cybersecurity awareness and resilience. So let me go attack that environment. So that's why you rise up in the ranks. You have a target-rich environment with a need for more cybersecurity education and resilience.
Okay, great. So I want to talk a little bit about we talked about MGM, but there's kind of a flow to how attackers attack, and you kind of term this the Mitre attack chain, right? Is that what's the term?
It's called it's a MITRE framework. This is a very kind of it's become an industry standard as a definition of how to see the attack framework or attack mechanism happening. I was actually at the RSA conference in San Francisco. It just ended today, and you're seeing vendors, monitoring vendors now in their product itself. They'll actually list out the MITRE framework and say we're now gonna surface up security alerts and map it to the MITRE framework. So you see, hey, somebody tried to do initial access, and then what the hacker will do is then they'll try to execute a virus or whatnot, a different type of program, and then they'll go past the protection element, and so on and so on. And so what a MITRE framework gives you is kind of the path that most hackers will take, so that you are aware of how to defend your company and what type of attack mechanisms to look for. So it's a great, again, there are people who spend days in training on how the MITRE framework works, how it maps to your company, what type of technology and products and monitoring you need to put into place to be able to protect against it.
Okay, great. And so I mean, there's now a ton, sprouting up everywhere, right? Security operations centers, cybersecurity solutions, and there's a lot of confusion in the market, right? Which product should I use? I'm already using Microsoft Defender. I should be fine. And there's all kinds of and then there's enterprise protection, there's individual protection, and all that stuff that's happening. I mean, you've been in the industry for 37 years now. So you've kind of seen the evolution of back then, it was hacking games and stuff, to today, it's ransom, it's really encryption, encrypting your data and holding you hostage, and a whole bunch of other things that have taken place. Talk us through where you think the state of cybersecurity is today, and where do you think it's evolving, and where does cybersecurity come in, right? I mean, so we know the attacks are going to mean, you said that, it's in the trillion, right? 10 trillion sort of the losses that are expected this year in 2024. So we know cybercrime is going to increase, but what's the state of cybersecurity, the reaction to it, the policing of it, and where do you think it's moving? And I know your organization, FullArmor, and you've developed a product together. I know CyberArmor is distributing it. That is probably ahead of most of the others, right? So maybe you can share a little bit on where the state of cybersecurity is and where you think it's moving.
Yeah, it's a very broad and good question. But the best analogy I give with cybersecurity is cybersecurity. There's two industries that will never go away. Okay, if you want a job that's secure for the rest of your life, for the rest of your grandkids' life, there's two job areas. One is medicine, because everybody's going to eventually get sick and die. So there'll always be sick people, and there'll always be diseases. There's always be viruses that will pop up that'll continue to infect us. The second one is cybersecurity. We will continue to be more connected. There'll be more industries interconnected. There's more data that's going to be now cloud enabled and available. There's always going to be cybercrime. There's always going to be cyber criminals, because it's the easier path for people to get into, to extract money and to do crime, and then going and robbing a local bank. If I was a criminal today, I wouldn't go and take a attack on brick and mortar areas. I'd go into cybersecurity. So that's really the case. The state of cybersecurity is, unfortunately, the activity of criminal activity is increasing significantly. And I hear this because we work with a lot of governments. Actually, we have a lot of business with the U.S. government. I can't really say who, but a lot of very sensitive areas. And we have projects that we have ongoing that helps us see the state of where the attacks are coming. And sometimes it's ahead of the industry, because we're seeing state level attacks, which then filter into attacks that go into local businesses and enterprises. And the sophistication of these attacks is very alarming. And that's, I don't want to be an alarmist in that way, but actually it's better to be prepared, because, hey, here's a definition or here's a trending of how things are coming. And if you look at just the numbers alone, cybercrime and the increase of cybercrime across not only industries but countries are increasing, on sometimes doubling, tripling every year or every quarter at times. So there's an alarming trend, but more so what we're seeing is the sophistication of attacks are also increasing. So one of the things that most advanced cybersecurity professionals have realized now, maybe 5 years ago, the whole purpose of cybersecurity is, hey, let's defend. If I'm the body and I'm trying to defend myself, let's put on bacterial proof shields and make sure we're not going to get hit by bacteria and viruses. Today, most cybersecurity professionals have resigned to the fact that the hackers and criminals are already inside your network, and you need to learn how to mitigate the fact that the hackers are already in. And that's an uncomfortable thing to think about, that you have hackers inside your network. What do you do? Defending the outer boundaries you still need to do that, but it's not the only solution you need.
Right. So you and your team actually have developed a new solution, right? Something that is and I know it's called Shepherd, right? It's kind of a different approach to looking at cybersecurity, a stealth and containment approach, and it's really about eliminating the network attack surface. So talk us through this new thinking. How do you come about getting into this? Because as you looked at it and you know that the hackers are already in the system, then how do you protect your critical assets and your critical information and so on? Because they're already in the system. Then how do you manage them, or how do you eradicate them from accessing your data? Right. So that's kind of the thinking that came. Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. The way we came up with an idea is, to be honest, it was actually by mistake, random. One of my developers decided to bring up a virtual machine, an empty VM, to do some workloads, and he went out for lunch, and then he came back about an hour later and literally had 2,000 to 3,000 attacks on it. And it's an empty VM. So he was just kind of frustrated and pissed off and whatnot. Then he started to realize, wait, how did they find my VM and why was it being attacked? And what he realized is there's hacker attack bots everywhere, and what they're looking for is target-rich environments. And how do they find these target-rich environments? Many times, what they're doing is they're doing searches for open ports, which gives you the ability to find all the targets. And so when you bring up a new virtual machine, you got open ports everywhere. Same thing with every system out there, websites, databases, whatnot. They have open ports. And the conventional thought is that you cannot operate a client-to-server end-to-end connection without an open port. That was the conventional thinking. Well, my guy fortunately was an ex-hacker, so he knew, hey, you know what? You don't need to have open ports. You can use kind of hacker-type thinking to close all the ports. And so in a very high-level way of describing it, I would love to go down in more detail in a later podcast, but essentially what Shepherd does, and it's very unique, we actually, within 2 months, we actually got 3 patents on it, because the patent office said this is the most unique approach they've ever seen to solving this problem. What Shepherd does is it creates a system that allows the client machine and the server machine, without changing the application, to communicate securely without any open ports. And so on the client, we use the local port. We create a secure WebSocket. To the server end, we have a Shepherd service in the middle that does the authentication and connection of the WebSockets. And then you have a secure communication. And essentially, your communication to the other end, to the server, is to a server that has no open ports, has no visibility to the outside world. And so the hackers can't even find it. And so in many scenarios that we've deployed Shepherd, corporations see the number of attacks on their server go from, in some scenarios, they've gone from 5,000 to 7,000 attacks a month to 0. And it's a different way of approaching cybersecurity. Now, you still want to put firewalls and other things on it just in case, but what it does is even if the hacker's inside your network, the only thing they can see that's critical, that's of value, is only the computer that they hacked into, and nothing else. Everything else inside the network, even for the person inside the network, is invisible. And that's really, it's called removing the attack surface, and that's the approach we took with the Shepherd product.
Wow, and this now Shepherd product is available in Southeast Asia, right? Essentially through CyberArmor. So this is going to be interesting, right? Because I'm assuming the hackers will figure out a way down the road. But at this point, at least, it seems to. Is there a specific case study or different organizations that have used it, and what kind of results are we looking at? Like completely zero attacks, or how does this work?
So a lot of companies are overwhelmed these days. If you talk to any CISO, they're overwhelmed with it's interesting. I was at the RSA conference, and most of the products that they're selling out there is monitoring products. People love monitoring because it gives them something to do. Oh, let me monitor. And the problem with monitoring, and you don't want to not monitor, but the problem with monitoring is you don't know what's positive or false positive. You get so much events, you're literally inundated. And so most CISOs only respond to or look at the top, X percentage of the events. Well, a lot of times those get even the events that probably you need to surface out because you can't process all of this goes without being noticed. And so what Shepherd does, as you deploy it and replace your basic services with services that are completely invisible to the outside world, your number of events goes down significantly. Mm-hmm. That in itself is a huge savings in resources, and so now you can truly respond to the critical ones that are probably breaches that are happening.
I know you've got a brief little video on Shepherd. So let me just add that for the viewers. It's just a minute or so here. So this a quick kind of outline of what Shepherd is. So if this is, hopefully this will kind of change the world of cybersecurity. Somewhat, right?
I think it'll give a new tool, way of addressing the sophistication of attacks that are coming in. When you add AI to the level of expertise that hackers are using, it really becomes a daunting, if not a very difficult task to keep ahead of hackers. What this does is it doesn't matter what type of attack. If they can't even see your computer, they don't even know to attack it. And so we're starting to see very interesting use cases coming out of this. Our next version actually is going to be IoT ready, meaning we can actually now make IoT devices invisible. And that's, for a lot of companies, that's a huge. People don't realize that IoT devices are full operating systems that are running inside your network, unmonitored a lot of times, and a huge security breach. And to be able to make those IoT devices invisible but allow your applications to connect is a huge value add.
Wow. And there's a question from Marissa. I guess you somewhat answered it, right? AI and maybe not blockchain, but I mean there is things like what you talked about, the new technologies, IoT and stuff that is going to be embedded in. I'm assuming also as you upgrade Shepherd to the next level, you'll be embedding a lot of these new technologies into the
Definitely.
tool.
We want to stay ahead of the hacker community. What they're doing is they're using AI to make the stuff that they've been doing more efficient, if you can imagine. What used to take, maybe if I did a social engineering attack on NeuroOcean, a standard hacker may spend days trying to hack your social media and all of that. They can now do that with AI, maybe within minutes, maybe within an hour. Imagine the number of social engineering attacks that can happen as a result. And that's just one example, but everything else the hackers have been doing have now become more efficient. Now, I believe AI is going to have already created productivity gains in many areas, but the thing is, it's also being used for nefarious purposes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Danny, we always have a quick fire round in our tech talks, and usually it's about it's about getting the guests to answer within a minute each question. I mean, the shorter the better. So I'm gonna give you 5 questions, and you gotta quickly answer them in a kind of kind of a firing way, quick fire way. So here's question number 1. What's your favorite non-tech related topic or subject?
Space. I'm a huge proponent of NASA and doing a lot of experiments in space.
And you have also started Space Quest, and you one of the first guys to put internet in space, right?
Yep.
So I mean,
space and education. That's
yeah.
Although you said non-tech related, but yes.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Since you started out 36 years, what has been the worst cyber attack?
Worst cyber attack is probably one that we caused ourselves accidentally. And I'm not sure if I can say this publicly, but we did a software release to a major retailer. Think about the largest retailer in the world. And we did release that software with a critical or severe bug. And it ended up crashing every retail store in the nation, in the US, bringing down the whole retailer. So yes, that it was an unintentional cyber attack that was caused unintentionally. But the thing is, those are something that happens as well. And that's probably the worst thing that's ever happened that I can remember.
That's a story we should talk about one of these days. Why is change so hard for cybersecurity professionals, yet so easy for hackers?
Cybersecurity professionals are working in a corporate environment. Corporations have procedures, guidelines. They have different departments that they have to go through. Hacker doesn't care what departments he goes through to get to your data. So when a hacker comes in, he may go through 4 or 5 different departments and operational systems, coming in at a server, going into a Linux server and a Windows server, and a Windows laptop and a Mac desktop. That you just went through 4 departments that don't even communicate many times. And so cybersecurity professionals have to battle the politics and the communication across these departments. A hacker can go through all of that within a day or minutes.
All right. Got it. I'm not sure you know this, but name a movie or series that you think everyone must watch on cybersecurity or cybercrime.
That's a good question. Even the latest movies that has come out, almost every movie, if you think about a major blockbuster that's come out, right? From Tom Cruise and all this, it's all on cybersecurity. So now some of it is a little bit exaggerated, but what you'll realize is when Hollywood movies are coming out and almost all the themes are on cybersecurity crime, you start to realize that this is actually a very is a problem that everybody has to deal with.
Yep. And the final question for you today. what's the best cybersecurity product out there today? And you can
The
be
best
biased.
cybersecurity product is you, meaning, and that's one thing that gets overlooked too much. It's educating and equipping people to be more cybersecurity resilient, cybersecurity aware, and to a large degree, there's 3.5 million cybersecurity jobs out there that's unfulfilled, and the reason why is because it's not because of lack of course material, it's because there's lack of hands-on training. So the best cybersecurity product is you, in the U.S. We have 700,000 cybersecurity jobs unfulfilled. The U.S. Government consider that a national emergency, a national threat, and so you could be the best cybersecurity product, being aware of all the different tools and products and systems out there that you can train yourself on how to
Oh,
use.
I like that. I want to close out with Shepard, this new way of cybersecurity, because there's a question from Bala Murugan that asks, how big a team do we need to implement these protections? I think specifically he's talking about Shepard.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the biggest hindrances in deploying a lot of the cybersecurity solutions, because it's so invasive, and to large degree because it has to restructure your network architecture, put in new firewalls and VPN solutions. It's actually it takes so long and so much manpower to install, because you're still defending the castle, right? And you got to bolt your defense system on top of your castle. What's really interesting, and this is one of our biggest selling points that I don't actually bring out as much. Shepard, because it's a point-to-point solution, removing the attack surface, we usually deploy within hours or days. And it really only requires, actually, we've done a deployment with a large department in the US government, and it took us 1 day. And so the ease of deployment, because it works on top of the existing infrastructure, and it really only requires the installation of our agent on the target end, and then removing the attack surface. It's one of the easiest products to install, and so it can be done with one IT professional, IT administrator, and on our side, and then another IT professional on your corporate end, to be able to install and even pilot to deploy the product out there. So would love to engage if there's an interest. We have pilot offerings that allow you to bring this into your house and test it out and see the reduction in the attack surfaces and attack events that happen as a result.
And then you've taken on this new role as CEO of CyberArmor. Talk to us maybe in 30 seconds what CyberArmor does and how they can help Malaysian businesses.
CyberArmor, we launched this company because it's really the services arm of educating people in cybersecurity and deploying the best-in-class solutions. And one of those is obviously Shepard from FullArmor. But what we saw, FullArmor is developing these innovative solutions. We saw the other end of the spectrum, where we need to both educate and help services that deploy these solutions to the corporate market.
And so it's two angles. One is the education, and I think you're coming out to Malaysia June 10th. You have a public program, and you're also open to meet with boards and C-suite leaders to brief them, do cybersecurity briefings. But I think the other piece is that you will be also deploying this whole aspect of Shepard into a couple of organizations that have signed POCs with CyberArmor.
Yes.
So if you are interested, you can send an email to info@cyberarmor.asia, or you can call that number over there. That's Azriel, and he'll be able to set up some time for you to discuss with Danny, or if you want to talk about Shepard, how you can do a POC or proof of concept for your organization. So with that, Danny, what are your final thoughts on this space of cybersecurity and advice that you can impart to us as we close out this show?
I think cybersecurity is a growing threat, but it's also exciting because it's an area that we can both educate ourselves and be able to protect ourselves against. And I think it's one of the most fun areas. It's constantly changing. It's a challenge, and so it's something that we're excited about, and we really are excited about the possibility of not only educating, but being able to protect the businesses that can rely on the Shepard technology and others.
All right. With that, it's a wrap. Thanks so much, Danny. Appreciate being here. This is Danny Kim, CEO of CyberArmor and founder of FullArmor. Danny, thanks for being here. All the best. Have a great day and a great weekend, everyone. Here's Tech Talk Friday, the new season, first episode here with Danny Kim. Thanks, everyone.